Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I just wanted to lay out a video where I talk to you all about what I would want to say is a common misconception amongst beginner lifters, and you see it taken advantage of so many times throughout the fitness industry. And that's the idea that the strongest lifters or the best looking lifters make the best coaches. And while at face value, that makes a ton of sense, right? And that's why people fall into this trap in our industry. Once you look under the surface and think about the nuances, the more you start to realize, maybe this isn't the case. And if you talk to some of these strongest lifters or good looking lifters, if you're talking about bodybuilders, things like that, the biggest guys, you may start to realize that it's just simply not the case where they had to put all of this thought into their training. So I'm going to make a couple videos, probably 4 in this series. I'm going to start with, this video as to why the strongest lifters don't make the best coaches. And then I'll take the opposite side where, they can make very good coaches. And then I'll talk about weaker lifters and newer lifters and the pros and cons to having them as a coach as well. So for today, I want to focus on the strong lifter and the experienced lifter and why they don't always make the best pairing for a coach. And this is mostly because it comes from me. I can see that side of the perspective as a more experienced lifter. I get, many people over the course of months who come to me and ask about coaching and if I provide a coaching service. Put simply, I do write programming and I have programmed for people in the past and currently do for a couple people as well. And I enjoy that side of the sport, but I mostly direct people to my coach, Bill McCarthy, because he is the professional at this. And there's something to being able to identify, strengths and weaknesses. And ultimately, I'm a teacher by trade. I'm not a coach by trade. And I can identify that as I've gone through. Now, this is the one that, like I said, at face value, it seems like that strongest guy would make the best fit as a coach. But the main variable that you have to take into account with humans is genetics. And honestly, the top level of a strength sport or a sport like bodybuilding, of course, we have to work extremely hard, but there is a large portion of the population who can work very hard, but not optimally. But because of how good their genetics are, they get carried along a little bit, and it looks like they've made even more progress because of some secret that they know, rather than just hard work and genetics. I'm not saying these people aren't working hard, but you don't have to work as smart whenever you have the genetics to kind of back you up and bring you along the ride a little bit. So what happens is, especially with social media nowadays, it's tempting for these upper level lifters, these strong people. That's why all of the influencers, they look shredded. They might be on various drugs, but the companies will pick them up because the general population is going to assume that they know what they're talking about. And it's really a sad thing, and I've always joked about it, with friends and people at the gym. Everybody's a coach nowadays, and it's being a high level lifter is probably the easiest place to transition into being a coach, whether you know what you're talking about or not. And it's mostly because we have like a bias towards authority. And when someone has done something that you want to do, we naturally want to follow that path. And I'm not saying that's wrong. Someone I really look up to in the powerlifting community is Mike Tushier. He paved the way for a 120, achieving the highest of the high goals for me. And he's someone who happened to, also have the wits to back up the strength. And he is a very accomplished and very good coach. So he's an example of someone who works. But for every one of those that you have who has the intellect and the genetics and the drive, you're going to get probably 100 people who just kind of got there through hard work, genetics, and without actually having to think anything through. And the last point that I'll make here, and it's a great example, is someone who's built for a lift. So if you get a lifter who's really good at bench pressing, maybe they're just naturally really gifted, people are going to tend to gravitate toward them for tips. But if you have the morphology that's built to bench really well, or the morphology to deadlift really well, then chances are you haven't had to think too much. It comes to you naturally. And in my experience, talking to a bunch of big benchers or big deadlifters, their approach is, I just lay down on the bench and press it. I get where it's comfortable. Same thing with the deadlift. I just walk up and kind of pick it up. And because of those natural leverages, they do not have to give all of this mental thought into, okay, this is the perfect form to deadlift. I need to tweak this so that I can be this much more efficient. They just kind of lay down and do it, and they have very big numbers because they work hard behind those genetics. Whereas someone who might be slightly weaker, say they're a middle of the pack bench presser, they have to think so much more because maybe their morphology doesn't benefit the bench press as much. And whenever you talk to them, they might have so much more knowledge underneath because they have had to do all this research to get this decent bench press rather than someone who it kind of came naturally to them. Okay, so overall, I would just be careful whenever you're shopping for a coach. Okay, it is a great selling point. If they are a good lifter, I am not belittling that at all. I think it's a great point, but it's just one checkbox that you need to check because you need to see, do they have the education background? Do they have the knowledge? When you speak to them, can you tell that they've really thought this through? And, do they have prior relationships with athletes that you can see that were successful in programming? So, like I said, I will do future videos talking about the other side of this argument, and then also newer coaches who are just kind of jumping into the fray and what makes the perfect coach. So thank you all for listening. Please let me know down below, what are your thoughts? Does your coach need to be the strongest guy? Do you think it's all education, all experience? I don't know. Where I sit is probably somewhere in the middle. Okay, so thank you all for watching. Please like and subscribe. And until next time, happy lifting.